This video will go through the answers to exercise sheet number 1, drawing organic compounds. Let's get going. We'll start with ethanol. Eth tells us that our carbon chain has got 2 carbons in it. Anol tells us that it's part of the alcohol homologous series. And so the functional group is an OH group, a hydroxyl group. Don't forget the bond between the oxygen and the hydrogen. Then we go to each carbon, and each carbon must have 4 bonds. And so we add hydrogens until every carbon has got 4 bonds coming out of it. So that's the drawing for ethanol. Hexanol. Hex tells us that our main carbon chain has got 6 carbons in it. Anol tells us that it belongs to the aldehyde functional group. And so we have a C double bond O, a carbonyl group, and a single hydrogen on the end of a chain. The aldehyde has that carbonyl group on the end of a chain, and then we fill up with hydrogens. Butanoic acid. But tells us that we've got 4 carbon atoms. Anoic acid tells us it belongs to the carboxylic acid group, so we need a carbonyl group, a C double bond O, and a hydroxyl group, an OH, and that together makes up what we know as the carboxyl group, which defines the carboxylic acids. We then fill up with hydrogen so that each carbon atom has got 4 bonds. Pentanthreol. Pent tells us that we've got 5 carbon atoms in the chain. 3-ol tells us that we have a hydroxyl group, an OH group, on carbon number 3 to form the alcohol. So let's number our carbons. Doesn't matter which side you start from. I've just started from the left. And then on carbon number 3 we have a hydroxyl group, an OH group. And then each of the other carbons has the hydrogens until every carbon atom has 4 bonds. Right, heptan-2-one, it's a ketone. Let's start with hept. That tells us that we've got 7 carbon atoms. And then the 2-one tells us that on carbon number 2 we've got a C double bond O, a carbonyl group. So let's number the chain. There's carbon 2, and we put our C double bond O, making it a ketone. And then we fill up the hydrogens. 2,3 pentane diol. Pent tells us that our chain has got 5 carbons in it. 2,3 diol means that we've got 2 hydroxyl groups. That's the di part, diol, 2 ol groups or 2 hydroxyl groups. And the 2,3 tells us that one's on carbon 2 and one's on carbon 3. So let's number the chain. And on carbon 2 we put an OH hydroxyl group. And on carbon 3 we put an OH hydroxyl group, and then we fill up hydrogens on the other carbons. Right, methyl butanoate. The anoate tells us it's an ester group, and I think the easiest way to draw esters is to start by drawing the ester functional group. The methyl refers to a single carbon atom branch on the far side of the oxygen in the chain. So there I've added our methyl branch. But tells us that there are 4 carbon atoms in the chain with the carbon holding the double bond oxygen. So there I've labeled that carbon number 1, and so we need to have a total of 4. So I add another 3. They're the 4 carbon atoms that make up the butanoate part of the ester, and then we add in the hydrogens. And there's methyl butanoate.